Welcome back to P2T Canine. I'm Chris, and this is another Dog Talk. Thanks for joining me. The subject of this one, as you've probably already read, Louie, knock it off. I got dogs in here. The subject, as you may have already read by the title, is understanding the recall and how to get it. So, like many of my other subjects, it's not as straightforward as you would probably hope for. And because of that, this video is going to be similar to most of my other ones. It's going to have solid, workable information, but as with most things in dog training and dog work, there's not this easy, straightforward, simple explanation. There aren't really shortcuts when it comes to good, reliable behaviors and training. So with that being said, this video, as with a couple of others, was requested by an account that we communicate pretty regularly, out doing real work, high-end tactical work, canine here stateside. So we want to thank him for another great submission, and we're going to bang this one out for him. As a reminder, P2T Canine is an equipment and training company. So these three simple looking pieces, along with a Cobra buckle and a tri-slide, can become this on the sewing machine right over my shoulder. I make all of these and more. Go to p2tcanine.com and check out all the equipment offerings that I have. And if you have an idea for a custom piece, send me your idea and maybe I can make that for you as well. I've done that for a couple of other people. Shout out to Manda and Todd for the Todd's Trainer. Let's get back to the video. So, if you have watched all of my videos or some of them, or if you've trained with me before, we're going to have two recurring themes that come up throughout my video series and when you train with me in person. One of them is going to be my constant fight and pushback against anthropomorphic behavior and thinking. With that being said, a recap, or for those of you who are new to training with me, anthropomorphic thinking or anthropomorphic behavior is assigning human values and explanations to explain dog behavior, animal behavior in general, but because we're here on the P2T Canine channel, we are talking specifically about dogs, but this goes for all animals in general. Their motivations don't always, well, rarely line up with ours. The reasons that they do things, reasons they modify their behavior. Don't go putting human explanations and trying to explain that through a human lens, or you're already going to be going in the wrong direction. So that's number one. Number two, the relationship between so many subjects. That's why when I opened the video and I said, like a lot of my other ones in this series, you're going to get an answer that you might not expect or isn't as straightforward as you had hoped for. Now, it will be well thought out and it's going to be very well resourced, and I'll explain how everything goes together. But with that being said, all of these things have these tendrils that go from one subject to the next and have these relationships. And that's why there are no simple explanations to any one given behavior modification or training solution, because no matter what you do, it relies on something from another area, or it can negatively impact something in another area if you don't pay attention to what those relationships are. And there is no one training technique that you can do nonstop as a panacea, a solve-all, silver bullet problem solver, that if you stick with it without understanding those relationships in other areas, that it's not going to cause you problems, because it will. So, the account that I referenced, he is doing high-end tactical law enforcement work. He has an old dog that's already just completely dialed in, but due to his age, he's starting to approach the end of his service life, and everyone kind of knows that. So this guy has been on a quest for a while now. It's been probably a year and a half that I know of that he's been trying to identify a new young dog and start developing that dog to replace his current veteran dog, who's quite seasoned, very popular with his teammates, does the right thing. Just one of those fire and forget weapons at this point. But like with all dogs, he probably wasn't that way when he started. And it's difficult when you are a handler and you're a one dog handler. Once you're 3-4 years into your career and you've got your dog pretty dialed and it's improving and it's come so far from when you first got your dog, it becomes difficult for you to remember those challenging days when the dog wasn't smooth and he wasn't automatic. And sometimes it's difficult for you to take on a new dog and maintain that situational awareness, that reference of, yeah, he's a new dog and it's going to be rough. And your prior or current dog was probably that rough. You just don't remember that whole process and how challenging it was, because for the last few years, you've been rocking and rolling and doing the right thing day in and day out, and it's been going well. So it's tough to remember that early developmental process. So this guy that I referenced, he's currently plugging in his old veteran dog, using it as needed, and he's currently training his second that I know of new dog that he's acquired, trying to build him up and be the eventual replacement for the current veteran dog. So he's doing a lot of tactical exercises and even plugging him into some more known, less high risk street situations to try to get that dog some experience and get him dialed up and working, and also doing a lot of training with his unit and other team members. So there we've set the table for what's going on. He had a scenario, I think about a week ago, where the dog was off leash in a building search and they did have a decoy in there. I don't have my phone with the exact message on it in front of me right now to read from the message, but the situation didn't go exactly as it had been laid out. And then he was relying on his recall in the dark to try to get the dog back. And there were some other team members present moving about. And everything worked out. There were no negative outcomes from the scenario. But then he sent me the message outlining everything and saying, hey, can you talk about how to get a recall? I'm going to need a really solid recall on this dog. How do I go about getting it? So that brings us to the nub of the matter, the recall, understanding it, and how to get it. So already started, don't be anthropomorphic. And then I'm going to present something to you that's going to sound anthropomorphic, but I'm going to demonstrate how it's not. If you're not familiar with what is known as the OODA loop, OODA, an acronym, observe, orient, decide, and act. It's a principle from psychology that has made its way over into the tactical arena, and it references your actions on target and really actions on a daily basis. Everything that happens around you, you're basically going around this circular cycle. You're going to observe something, you're going to orient yourself to what's going on, and hopefully situational awareness of what's going on around you other than just the target action. Then you're going to decide how you're going to handle the situation, and then you're going to act. And then as you act, you insert yourself into the situation, the dynamics change, and then you're in this continuous circular cycle of observing, orienting, deciding, and acting. Bam, OODA loop, 4 letters, bam, 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 bam. Now, I am going to tell you that I do believe dogs engage in OODA loops. And I will explain to you, whether you're a pet owner or a working dog handler, I'm willing to bet that you have seen, while you're out with your dog walking on a leash or off leash in the woods in an urban area, something will get your dog's attention. Now, even though the first O stands for observe, our dogs do observe with their eyes, but dogs also take the world in through their nose. They see the environment, they test things around them with their nose. We know they're very nose oriented and nose reliant. They also observe with their ears. So when I say observe, as far as a canine goes, whether it be pet or whether it be a working dog, new information is going to come in, eyes, ears, or nose. You will see a change of behavior, the COB that working dog handlers are familiar with. So my dog might walk through a scent cone, but he observed new information with his nose, and I will see him stop, and he will probably turn into the upwind direction. Now he is orienting, the second stage of the OODA loop. So as he orients himself to where did that sight, scent, or sound come from, he's kind of dialing in on it and honing in his picture. Then he starts to decide, is this something that I can close distance with? Where is it? Is it something I can pursue? And in that moment, we're moving towards the final letter, which is the act portion. So when they're in the deciding, if the dog was walking along, the two of you, his ears might have been neutral. They might have even been laid back listening to you if you had him in some kind of an obedient heel or loose obedience as you're doing a building check or a foot patrol or something of this nature. Once those ears move forward in a positive direction, that is definitely somewhere between the orient and decide stages in this entire cycle. If you see him stop and close his mouth and go from mouth breathing to pure nasal sampling, again, this is somewhere between orientation and deciding. He's changing physical appearance and posture and showing you, I am observing and deciding on something that I want to do right now. That's when we as handlers, we take note of that because we saw a change of behavior with our dog, and now we go into an OODA loop. We're observing, orienting, deciding, and acting. We're either going to allow this dog to satisfy its curiosity, or we're going to continue the search or the foot patrol or whatever it is that we're doing and make the dog move on based on the information that we're receiving. Once we see the ears change and maybe the elbows bend or the dog start to lean forward, you are now right there between 3 and 4. We're going from decide to act, and this is probably going to happen pretty quickly given the nature of your dog and the situation at hand. So I'm laying all of this out for a reason. I'm building the case for you that using the OODA loop as a guide in this subject is not anthropomorphic thinking on our part. I am demonstrating for you so that you can think back on interactions with your dogs that, yeah, there probably is some crossover there, and this is how we can line up our mental orientation to this subject and to this task. So, after giving it some thought about the question posited by my working dog handler, orient, decide, and act, then I started thinking about your defense condition, the DEFCON. Everybody's kind of familiar and may even laugh and make jokes personally with DEFCON. You know, we're at DEFCON 1, 2, 3, 4, and because there are 4 letters in the OODA loop acronym and there are also 4 defense conditions, I thought, okay, observe is DEFCON 1, orient is DEFCON 2, decide is DEFCON 3, and act is DEFCON 4. If you're familiar with the DEFCON system, 4 being the most extreme, the elevated highest point of that system, then that is going to line up with our system, and we're going to know that once you get to act, in the dog's brain, we're pretty much at DEFCON 4, and I'll explain how that lines up as far as the drive goes. Because if we're talking about a recall, we are looking at getting the dog back, perhaps even under circumstances where the dog does not necessarily want to come back and recall. And that's really the heart of the issue here. Recalling your dog under neutral and or ideal circumstances, well, that's not that big of a deal because there are no distractors. There's nothing elevating his drive. There isn't stimulation present that is going to cause him to want to close distance with that and go away from you and continue the mission that he's decided he wants to go on. So that's why I thought, well, I'm going to present this as DEF CON levels that mirror the stages of the OODA loop. So with that being said, now we're going to go back and reference some of my prior videos in this series. One of them being getting the out and understanding the out and how to get it. Just like I started that video with, we look at the relationship between prey-oriented items all the way from a bowl of food and a consumable at the bottom of the scale, moving through toys and other items that can be pursued, captured, chewed, play fetch with them. Then we move into the human targets for our patrol dogs, where we're talking about decoys and protective equipment. And then eventually street targets, where we're looking for people either with military working dogs or with law enforcement working dogs. And so we have to view the scale in exactly that fashion. And it's important to know that. So when I start laying out understanding the recall and how to get it, we're going to reference that video, because just like I started with, all of these subjects have some kind of overlap and relationship with each other, and you have to understand that going into it. So when I started my out video, I started talking about the lowest end of the scale on that one, which is your food pan. Dogs that are food driven, if you can't teach them, and again, we're going to assume that this is a working drive quality dog that goes all the way to the top end of the scale with an apprehension dog that can be trained or is trained for bite work. If you don't have obedience and compliance and good skills around a pan of food, we don't even need to talk about a decoy yet in protective equipment. Because if you don't have a handle on this dog at the lowest end of the scale, we don't even need to be up here on the top end. But that's where everybody wants to go. They want to run straight to, oh, I want to do the sexy, cool looking thing. I want to get the out off of a decoy. I want to get the recall from a decoy. Well, that's where we're going. But if you start there and you don't have a handle on the very bottom rung of the ladder, you're wasting a ton of time. And you're going to probably wind up with bad reps where the dog wins. That's going to set you back and create problems and create baggage, rather than going to the lowest rung on the ladder and starting there. I'll do a quick aside. Years ago, when I was at 7th group, I selected, trained, and fielded a dog with a handler by the name of Roy. The dog's name was Roy, not the handler. On a deployment in 2009, Roy had 2 back-to-back enemy kills on personnel in almost total darkness, 0 illumination, on a time-sensitive target. And he was running, he was on nose. There is, by the way, video of this, which will not be seen here, but it is pretty awesome to look at, to see Roy in the dark bracketing, going through his OODA loop, closing the distance on this enemy fighter. He had no idea that he was trying to kill the guy. He just jumped. It was in the dark. The dog jumped from the high ground. Our bad guy was on the low ground, and he happened to apply a neck bite, which was fatal to our enemy fighter. And then he had run with another compatriot enemy fighter who was a short distance away. After that, Roy winded in the dark and moved to his location in some rocks, and also administered a neck bite, which killed that guy. So he had 2 back-to-back fatal bites. As time went by, this dog needed to be retired out of our program because he got pretty edgy around gunfire, and I identified an Air Force kennel to do a lateral transfer and an adoption to that kennel, because they were well suited to deal with this dog. They were open to the things that I had to say, and I knew they would follow my guidance and be able to certify and field this dog. Their chain of command was not on board. They didn't adopt it, but another Air Force kennel in the area, well, they wanted to adopt Roy the Manslayer, and against my advice and my guidance not to give it to Kennel B, our chain of command went ahead and adopted that dog out to Kennel B, who did not have the understanding, did not want to follow guidance, but they wanted the reputation of, oh, we've got Roy the Manslayer, the dog that killed 2 men on target in one night. So they started having problems doing a control sequence with this dog, getting the out, having the handler be able to show control so they could become a certified team. So they asked if I could help them, which I said yes, bring the dog back to the 7th group facility, and I will run him through a complete control sequence for you. When they got there, the first thing that I did was pull out a Kong toy and start playing Kong with this dog. Much to the surprise of the Air Force personnel, they're looking at me as if I'm from a different planet and why am I wasting time? And they even said, why are you playing toy with a dog that has an outing problem and we can't do a control sequence yet? And I said, because if you can't do a control sequence and a call off with a thrown Kong, then you have no chance of doing it with a decoy and protective gear. And I said, so I'm going to basically reboot Roy's brain, because I know he'll do a complete off-leash control sequence, and I will demonstrate that today, not today now, but today back then during this encounter, and I'm going to show you how it's done, but I've got to go back and reestablish control at a lower rung on the ladder and fix what bad information, deconflict what you've done with him, and then I will walk into a control sequence with him. I would say long story short, but it's too late for that. I throw the toy, I get a little bit of energy off of him. One of the things I told them to do with him was to run 3 to 5 miles a day, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, get a dedicated handler to go out and run with this dog and exercise him down to a level of energy and mental clarity that would be useful and conducive to the training, which Kennel A was going to do that. Kennel B absolutely did not do that. When they brought this dog back to me, his toenails had grown out way past needing of a trim, and you would never need to trim this dog's nails if you were getting him out every day and doing what needed to be done, which is largely why he was in the mental shape that he was in and not capable of passing a basic control sequence. So played toy, 2 reasons: get rid of a little bit of unnecessary energy, take the edge off, and start inserting control sequence components into playing with the Kong. Within 20 minutes, I had one of my handlers out there in a sleeve doing a complete control sequence in and around this handler: ascend, a call off, recall, standoff, pat down, heel away, off leash, no problem. And these guys were just completely slack-jawed, jaw on the ground, but they don't understand the relationship between all of these things that need to take place prior to taking on one of these high-end training events. So they left. They continued to disregard my guidance, and Roy was eventually adopted out to a handler, and as far as I know, never made certification as a team for the Air Force because they were just stuck in their Lackland way of thinking and wouldn't accept anything else. So there you go. There is a demonstration of how these things actually matter and how they line up. With that being said, let's move back to the focus at hand, which is the recall. If you have a bite trained dog and you are going to establish a good, reliable recall, don't go out there with a decoy in a suit or in a sleeve or any kind of protective equipment and put them out in full view and start marching this dog around them and yanking on a 30-foot line or applying pressure with an e-collar and trying to work a recall. You've lost the plot. You're already at the top end of the food chain when you should be at the bottom rung of the ladder. We're going to start out with toys. In the place video, and I started off that video explaining how place made its way into the special operations canine community within the military, and admitted that at first, when the training NCO responsible for that brought it to my attention because he was a dedicated duck guy and bird hunter and gun dog guy. And he even said himself, I don't know how this is going to incorporate into what we're doing, but I just feel like it can. And he was right, and he turned out to be right. But at first, as I stated in the place video, I didn't see it. I thought, well, this just isn't going to work. Put that aside, and there is a retired SMU operator who left the unit and opened a private business in the Fort Bragg area. And in 2008, I sat in his office, and he also was a big gun dog guy and bird dog hunter, and had the discussion with him as he told me that a Malinois would never be able to participate in gun dog sport, and that it would be impossible to get a Mal to be able to do what retrievers do and labs do, what Labrador Retriever, Golden Retriever, etc., all your sporting dogs, German Shorthair, everything that competes in the gun dog trials, field trials. He said, you could never teach a Malinois to do that. And with my jaw on the floor in his office, I said, you're out of your mind. If Malinois ever got their foot in the door in gun dog sport, retrievers would be on the back burner. They would completely push them out of the top place finishes in probably every event. Where am I going with that? First of all, I was shocked, and that was prior to the introduction of the place training and other gun dog components into the special operations dog community. But even then, I knew there's no way that a Malinois couldn't learn to do what these field trial dogs are doing, and most certainly do it better. So let me go back and illustrate one thing. If you haven't watched a gun dog trial, go look at one. They will pre-plant a rubber duck, a dead duck decoy, in 3 separate locations in what otherwise would look like your normal field conditions for hunting. They'll have a marsh, maybe some tall grassy area. They'll have a few brush piles, and they will put these birds, these retrieve items, sometimes at a distance really outside of even if you shot a bird and it wasn't completely an instant kill and it went wounded duck a little bit further and landed way out. These retrieves are impressive. Some of them you're talking 300, 400, 500 yards, and they are way out there. So the dog is put on place in an obedient sit-stay. The handler will line up directly on line of sight with where these birds are pre-planted. Boom, they fire 1 round. Move to the second. Boom, they fire the second. Boom, they fire the third, all in line marking the potential down location of 3 separate retrieves. They put the gun aside, then they go down, they use the blade of the hand, they line the dog up, put him on line of sight, tell the dog, look. They try to get the dog focused in, ears bracketing between the object where the bird is at, and then they tell the dog back or give them their retrieve command. Often it's back to send them on a long send. The dog is supposed to go as straight as possible, hit water headlong like it's out of its mind, that the water is not even a problem, go straight through brush piles, and the organizers of these events set these retrieves up on purpose so that they can start to separate the real rock stars from the groupies, because they want the dog to go straight through the brush pile, straight through the briar thicket, straight through the water without trying to find a shorter way to cross the ditch or the stream or the shortest route in the pond to continue that straight line. So they put these natural real world obstacles in front of the dog, and the dog that's going to score the highest is the one who hits these things with no regard, without slowing down, without even a stutter step. They smash the water, they bust the brush, they jump straight over the log, the downed tree. They don't bracket around the log, they go straight across it. They want them to be strong ranger, land nav, point A to point B. Nothing is going to make me deviate from my path. So that's the point of what they're doing. the dogs that deviate, go around, hesitate, point deducts, dogs that veer off course, the handler will doot doot, they'll blow their whistle, they get them to stop, the dog turns, looks back into them, the handler will make a correction, over, they'll move the dog left or right. Once the dog is lined up again, then they tell them back, they'll toot toot, stop again, and once they're in line, they'll send them back, and the dog's supposed to turn that 180 and take up that new heading and go for the decoy. So that is your basic overview of the gun dog world. Somebody will watch this video, a guy that I know in specific, when he asked me one time, what is a genre or a discipline that I look to for dog training ideas and good information, I told him, I said, one of the places that I go to are my bird dog people, duck hunters and other bird dog hunters and gun sport, because these guys are very clinical. They are some of the least anthropomorphic people that you'll find in the dog world. They don't make excuses. They don't come up with touchy-feely explanations of why things should be done. They believe in both a reward system and a high compulsion system. And I mean high compulsion. These guys are not a bit afraid to do things with leashes and with e-collars. It's called a forced retrieve for a reason. Whether you want to or not, dog, you're going to go over there, you're going to pick it up, you're not going to crush my bird and smush it into a million unusable pieces. You're going to pick it up gently and you're going to come back and put it in my hand. And there are incentives that we will use to do that. And then there is plenty of compulsion that I've got if you don't want to go that route. And when something doesn't work, they abandon it. Either a dog is working it and cutting the mustard, or it's not. They will cut a dog from a program and cast it aside and go get a new one and start over in a heartbeat. So I'm not saying that the gun dog and bird dog community is the solution to everything, but there's a lot there to pick from and to farm from that is certainly useful, and this is part of it. So I know your eyes are glazed over and you're already thinking, I want to know about the recall and how to develop one and maintain a good one. Trust me, this all matters. This is why. This is the explanation. So how does that factor in? When I start, and it doesn't matter if it's a pet and it doesn't matter if it's a high-end working dog, that's why my entire business model is named Practical to Tactical. There is way more overlap between training dogs, regardless of their station in life or what they're used for, than there are actual differences. So the first thing that I do when I'm developing a recall, and we're going to focus on working dogs for the purpose of this video, but it doesn't matter if it's a pet, I want to build an incentive structure that makes returning to me pleasant. I realize I am not 100% all positive, all reward-based trainer. You already know that if you've watched any other video, because that is complete hokum. You will never, ever build a reliable dog that is all 100% reward-based training. It is not possible. I guarantee you, even if you say you've got one of those dogs, if you came and trained with me, I could find a hole in your game and I could put enough pressure, enough temptation, enough outside stimulation towards that dog that I could break any behavior that you've got. Go back and look at the video of diminishing returns. There are a ton of reasons that if you say you've done a reward-only, 100% positive-based training system, I guarantee you I'm going to find the area that you have used to gain that, and I can kill it hands down. Change of venue, change of stimulation, I will defeat it, because you have to have a compulsion backstopping your behavior. There's going to be a point where your dog has had enough rewards. It's had all the beanie weenies, all of the beef liver treats, all of the little num-nums that you could possibly give it. And there's going to be a level of temptation or stimulation available. And that dog is going to be satiated and it is going to break behavior. And that's when you have to have a compulsion system backstopping that incentive structure and say, you know what? Even on days when you don't want to, you're still going to. And he's not going to dread doing it because on the front end, at step one, we're going to build that incentive structure, and we are going to have a positive foundation of when he comes back to me, there's going to be a good reason, and it's going to be pleasant, because I don't want that baggage already in place that makes the dog coming to me look like a bad option. So, with that being said, any dog that I'm training, if they are food driven, I'm going to start with food. Even if it's a working caliber dog, if they are that high drive and prey oriented and toy oriented, you don't have to use yum yum treats. There's a 6-month-old Rottweiler in a Rufflin kennel right there that I got yesterday, a pet that I started training. This is an MF and Chow Hound. I don't need yum yums. I dumped 2 cups of his kibble in that bag right there into my treat pouch, and I just worked him nonstop this morning on place training, come and sit, and started working his down, just getting a break at the elbows, all for a clicker and opening my hand and letting him have the kibble in my hand. And most of the dogs that I dealt with for 11 years in soft MPC and most of my police dogs would all do that. They would work for their own food because they're already that drivey, and I'm not giving them yum yums. I'm not giving them food outside of their normal portioning for the day to interfere with their dietary balance. They're just working for their food, nice and natural. So if you want to start there, if your dog's willing to start there, that's where you start it. I'm going to lead them to place. I'm going to feed them for being on place, and then I'm going to feed them for coming back to me. So I'm going to start working this whole system of, when I use my recall word, whatever it is, come, here, plots, foos, whatever you're going to do, that when they're coming back, they're getting paid for that. They're getting paid as their regular meal, so they're hungry, they're ready for it. If we work to the point of satiation and they don't want to come super quick and motivated, that's fine. Training session over. I'll dump the rest of the food into the pan, and I'll let them go ahead and get their portion for that feeding of the day, and then we're going to move on. But we're going to have that first layer of good foundation of, there's a good reason to come to me. That incentive structure is there. I've placed value in it, and that's where we're going to begin. As time goes by, I'm going to add the e-collar with the lowest level of stimulation, look at e-collar techniques past and present. I'm going to show them how to turn that low level off. You turn the low level off when you get on place, and then I feed you for that. I'm going to back away and hold you on place with the e-collar. Then I'm going to call you to me with a low level of stimulation. And once you come and you get that food out of my hand, it's going to turn the stimulation off. So I'm going to start with that soft backside pressure of, here's the thing that I need you to do, and it's at a very low level. And when you show compliance and you complete the task, it goes away. So now I'm putting that nice black and white, good dichotomy of communication. We got a good incentive structure and we have a compulsion on the backside. When I tell you to do something, there's something in it for you, and that's the way you turn off that backside stimulation, that compulsion. So when I'm beginning my recall, the dog is going to want to come to me. I'm going to tap at those low levels. And trust me, if I can get box number 1 over here, this micro golden doodle who weighs all of 6 pounds to respond on e-collar pressure and vibrate pressure to come back to me, and then pay her with a couple of pieces of kibble, you can do this with a high-end working dog. And I've done it with high-end working dogs. So this is a good balanced system, no matter what you're talking about. If it's a little super soft, squishy pet, or if it's a really hardened dog, we're going to get in on that bottom rung of the ladder so that we can get our foundation going. I will probably in my lifetime never see the day where the internet is free of people who think they know what they're doing. Thinking specifically of a guy in Texas who is running classes and thinks that he's a full-time LE handler, but he thinks himself a trainer worthy of running classes, which he's doing. And they have got a leash, a 30-footer on a dog, the dog on a decoy and equipment, and an e-collar remote in their hand, and they're juicing this dog, foos, 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 and they're hitting that collar. And Unfortunately, again, I don't wish bad on this guy. Unfortunately, in these situations, the dog is breaking contact with the decoy and equipment. They're nailing down on this e-collar. They've got their 30-foot leash as backup, and they're bringing this dog back to them into this reluctant recall and heel. But go back and look at e-collar techniques past and present. You don't train this from the decoy, immediately smashing the e-collar. And the problem is, because the guy is getting some modicum of cooperation from the dogs and it's being successful at a level but not a great level, it reinforces in his brain that I'm doing the right thing and this works and this is how I should proceed forward. And this is how I'm going to teach it to my own agency and other surrounding agencies when I run my classes. So it's upsetting to a degree that it's working a little bit, because it continues to convince this guy I need to keep going down this road. I will probably never live to see the day where that is off the internet and we're not seeing people post those videos saying, look how good I'm doing with my out and recall. There, I just got an example. It's a canned example. It's not real world functional. You might be able to set yourself up to pass your certification, whether it's NNDDA, NAPWADA, or whatever you're using. Yeah, you can probably fake the funk and get through one of those. You might even be able to show some level of proficiency in some kind of a competition venue. But do you have a good utilitarian real world out and recall? And again, go back and look at past videos that I've put out. Even look at my Instagram account. I am exceptionally critical, especially this day and age. This is no longer the 80s. It's not even the 90s. You can't have a dog on an extended engagement in a real world environment where everybody has a ring camera, a security camera, a body camera on you, a cell phone camera pointed at you during an engagement, and have this dog on there absolutely locked down on a bad guy or not a bad guy. If you go look at my Instagram account, a dog got loose at a funeral in the New York area, I think Rochester, and just grabbed a bystander on the street, started housing somebody who was leaned up against a tree on the sidewalk. Terrible video. And the handler yelling out commands. First of all, the dog got loose. Somebody hit their door popper, and they've done bad training with seek and destroy as soon as they hear a door popper. Then the dog refuses the recall. Then he grabs a person. Then they're trying to choke the dog off, and he's non-compliant. Nightmare, 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 nightmare. That agency is going to be writing a big check to the person on the sidewalk. I am a firm believer. So my introduction to recalls started in the police community pre-September 11th, 2001. And then when I wound up in Iraq in 2005 in OIF 3 handling a dog, and then 4 more times in Afghanistan, I became a firm believer the out and the recall is not some silly one time a year pro forma bullshit that I have to get through to get my NAPWADA paper so the chief or the sheriff allows me to continue to be on the canine team, and then I immediately throw that paper, on my cluttered desk at the department headquarters, and then immediately go back to business as usual, having a dog that runs amok in the meantime, to only have to try to beat him back into compliance for that once a year cert. Once you get into high-end tactical problems, a theater of operation, Iraq, Afghanistan, or elsewhere, and the dynamics of the situation change, and now that 4-way intersection is riddled with bullets and your dog's on the other side biting somebody. If you don't want to go across the street full of bullets, you're either going to give your dog up for dead and leave a very expensive piece of tactical equipment. You're going to put your life, limb, and eyesight at risk running across a street riddled with bullets to collect him in person with a hard out, a strong off, taking him off strong, however your training group in your area describes it, and then running back across the street. And of course, if you've got good teammates, which most people do, they're not going to let you go by yourself. So now you've dragged 2 or more of your friends through that hail of gunfire to back you up to go collect the dog, so you don't lose the asset or allow your dog to become some kind of a propaganda tool because they have it or they killed it or they're parading the dead body around because you didn't have an out or a recall. So I absolutely believe in this. It's not the 90s anymore. We don't need to be operating canine departments, units, programs that do not believe in an actual functional out and recall. So with that being said, we're going in on the ground floor. I don't want one where I'm just screaming at a guy hitting that e-collar. So the next phase that we're going to go to is that overlap with that bird dog community. Once I start my place training, I've got, and go back and look at the place training video, I've got an ironclad, rock solid, sit, stay, down, stay, 4 corners, 4 boundaries that I can hold that dog in. And now I'm going to start playing toy, especially oriented towards our law enforcement and military working dog community, because they are high drive. I'm going to start throwing my toy and using some of that bird dog training, letting that dog go from ascend off of the place cot. After I throw the toy, we're adding stimulation. We've engaged his prey drive, and now we are working our obedience by keeping that dog on place once we rocket that toy out away from him. Now let's not go completely full retard from the get-go. We don't need to get a cannon and launch a tennis ball, with a 7.62 blank and send it 500, yards away from us. Throw it short. Keep your prey stimulation at a manageable level. We want to have successful reps and we want to have good reps and log those. So I'm not trying to make the dog break from the place cot. In fact, I want him to stay. And I'm not trying to beat him down with compulsion with touching him up with the e-collar when he comes off of the place board. So I'm going to start with some short, easy, playful throws, 20, 30, 40 feet into grass that's just slightly taller than the toy, so that when it comes to a landing and it rests, that it's not easily visible to the dog. And then I'm going to send him with a release command. You can even start with your area search command. You can do back, you can do find it, you can do revere, whatever you want to do that puts the dog on nose and releases him from obedience and sends him to go pick up the toy. We're already placing a level of control into play with the dog that's reinforceable with our compulsion tool, our e-collar, that's helped out by the fact that we're working from a place cot or a place table to make that even more effective and understandable communication to the dog. And we're going to send him. Once he goes out and he picks up the toy, now I'm going to recall, and I'm going to recall with a second toy or item of value to get that recall to be something that he wants to do. I'm going to put value and an incentive structure in that. I'm going to recall him to the place cot. I'm going to give him the out for toy number 1. And upon compliance, we're going to mark that with our yes, our ja brav, a good boy, a meineke brav han, whatever you want to do. And as soon as he spits it out and he's on the cot, I'm going to just flip it gently over my shoulder the other direction and let him have a short pursuit and claim that second toy. What have I done? I've built an incentive structure to the recall. I've reinforced my out command. I've got him to let go of an item of value for a second item of value. We've done a toy exchange. I pick up toy number 1 while he comes back with number 2. We're going to bring him back to the place cot. We're going to out for number 2. We're going to collect 2 and put it away. And now we do our reset. We're going to build out from here. In short order, your throw should become further, more energetic. We're going to up the prey stimulation. We're going to up the desire for him to put on a pursuit. We're going to extend the time that he has to hold composure and impulse control on place before we release and put him on their send and go and collect that toy. We're going to continue to reward them with something of value when they come back. And this is how we're going to develop the foundation for our recall. Now we're going to expand the scope, the pressure, the temptation, the stimulation. We're going to put our dog on place. We're going to take 2 toys and we're going to throw number 1 while we hold. We're going to throw number 2 while we hold. And now we've got 2 options. Go back and refer to my video, The Ultimate Tactical Exercise Maybe. This is another way that you get the recall. You don't want the dog solely focused on a single option for success. This is how you build that temptation for disobedience. This is how you build the loss of impulse control. Years and years back, we're in the Wayback Machine. When tactical training, we're at high-end military units that you would know if I mentioned them by name, on ranges that you might know by name, on bases that you surely would know, and high-end units that should know better are saying, oh, my dog, once we start towards a door, he's in drive and he hits the end of the lanyard and he's maxed out on the bungee retention lanyard, or he begins to whine or vocalize in some way that's undesirable. Because if you only have a single option available, and through a series of successful repetitions, the dog focuses on a single option that plays all the way through A to Z. He goes to the single option. It goes exactly the way it has, repetition after repetition. We line up the stack. The breacher goes, places the charge, comes back with the firing system and the shock tube, takes his place in line, execute, 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 bang, blow the door off, the dog goes in. If this has gone just like clockwork in the same choreography over and over, once the dog starts heading towards a building with the first door available, they make the automatic assumption that this is where we're going, which is what led me to create the template for the Ultimate Tactical Exercise Maybe, which is having multiple options at play in the environment. And we do that training scenario where the dog actually does, on the behest of the trainer or the handler, whoever's running the venue, he gets to go engage with all of these different options. A ground floor to a building, a door, a window at another building, a second story doorway at the top of a set of exterior stairs, a car parked nearby with a bad guy in it. Now we've put our dog in the middle of a venue where there are multiple options. Don't forget a bad guy in the wood line or a hedgerow between two buildings. Just because we're in a little village, a little shoot house village, doesn't mean that there could be a bad guy in the wood line in real world terms, where I need this dog to completely rule out of his mind, hey, we're not hitting a building. I know that we're in a series of buildings where you've done all of these prior hits. I need you to listen to me and go to that wood line over there. I need you to listen to me and go to that car parked at the corner with 3 available doors around it. Don't do my thinking for me, dog. I want you to listen to what I now deem as the threat that's in play, and I need you to go handle it. So that's what we're going for. That's why that relates back to the recall with throwing multiple toys, and we're tapping back in to that gun dog, bird dog community of, now I've given you 2 high value choices. I'm going to direct your attention to one specifically that I designate, and I'm going to send you to that one. Then I'm going to recall you from that one back to place. Initially, you can pay with toy number 3 with that recall back to place, out, reclaim toy 1, flip 3 over your shoulder, have him retrieve it and come back to place and out it. Then line him up on the original toy 2 and repeat. Send him for a retrieve on 2, have him pick that one up, go through the same set of steps, back to place, out, pick it up, exchange for one of the other 2 toys, flip it over your shoulder, giving him that high value reward, using your e-collar communication tool as needed to keep him on course. If you line him up on 1 and he deviates for 2, tap, 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 recall, 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 tap, tap, tap. We're going to turn him around and bring him back. If you can redirect to 1 without coming back to place, by all means do so. If you can't, come back to place, line him up on 1, send him for 1. If he won't do it, put your 3rd toy in play, throw it back over your shoulder, and let's send him. If we're trying to send for 1 and he won't give up for 2, let's put 3 in play going the opposite direction. Let him send and retrieve on a completely different one that you did designate, because again, we want good reps, not bad reps, where the dog wins fighting the system. If we have an option A and an option B, no matter what we're doing, we don't want that dog to identify an option C on their own and run that to fruition. Whether fruition is regaining an item of interest or desire that they want, or defeating our control mechanisms that we have in place, whether it's a 30-foot leash, an e-collar, a combination of both, if we allow our system to be defeated with an option C that the dog can devise, we got major problems. Now we got to go 3 steps backwards and try to put this dog mentally back in the box and get those guardrails back in place. So we are always working our system to make sure that the dog does not identify a viable option C. Go back and look at e-collar techniques, past and present. That's why we start e-collar work inside of an enclosed training building like I have here when I train my dogs, or out in a fenced-in area, an OB yard, or a baseball diamond that has a fence around it. I cannot, once I move to the off-leash portion of e-collar training, a possible option C of the dog running completely away from me and either exceeding the range of the e-collar itself, or you becoming squeamish, and the more you hit it, the further the dog runs. He's either going to outrun the signal or outrun your dedication to stimulating him, and he's going to defeat that collar by outrunning it. The signal's either going to quit because you quit, or he's going to outrun the range of the collar. And either way, he just learned option C to defeat this collar is haul ass in a direction away from you, and that is no good. So we don't want to allow them to identify that option C. So if we got 2 toys in play, he's not going for 1, he's trying to go for 2. If I can recall from 2, I'm going to put 3 in play just to make him engage in the system that I want him to engage in, and not be able to defeat my control measures and find that option C, which puts us way up shit creek that we've got to try to dig our way out of. So another principle that I want to put in play here that's extremely important. When I teach my pet owners how to work in obedience and how to understand obedience, the operating system that I present to them is interrupt, redirect, interrupt, redirect. You're probably wondering why I outlined OODA loop and DEFCON 1 through 4 to begin with. Don't worry, it's coming. So when I talk about interrupt and redirect, I teach my pet owners about the OODA loop, the observe, orient, decide, and act. We all know what behaviors as pet owners we don't want out of our dogs. What we don't know is how to break that behavior and what to do after that. Interrupt the bad OODA loop, and redirect. Redirect means use one of the tools that I've spent the last 1, 2, or 3 weeks putting into your dog: the recall, the sit, the place, the down. All of these are new options that you can give the dog to separate them from the bad behavior that you don't want. But it's not enough to interdict or interrupt the bad behavior. I've got to redirect that OODA loop to new input, and that's where the redirect comes in. So it's not enough if you out your dog and you don't redirect them to a new behavior that they can engage in. They're going to temporarily pause, and then the OODA loop begins, because as we talked about, it is a circular cycle that just keeps going around and around. So if you get a successful out, but you don't have a new redirect behavior to send the dog into, they're going to come back around to observe, orient, decide, and act, and they're going to re-engage the guy, whether you wanted them to or not, whether it's a real world bad guy or a decoy and protective equipment. That OODA loop comes back around and they go right back to it. Another super, super important concept that I need you to learn, that I give to my pet owners: you can only put pressure on a dog from one side at a time. What does that mean? Example, you go out to your mailbox, you've got your house shoes, your jammies, a cup of coffee. All you want to do, you want the dog to go outside in the yard to pee and poop. You want to get the newspaper out of the box, and you want to go sit and enjoy the quiet morning on the weekend, sipping coffee and leafing through the newspaper after your dog's had a potty break, while hopefully it lays contentedly in the living room floor chewing a Nylabone or a Kong and hanging out with you and you have a great start to your morning. Problem becomes you go to the mailbox, dog bolts and runs down the street. Foofy, come back here. Foofy, Foofy, come back here. You're furious. Your blood pressure is up. Your vocal presentations are bad. You're extremely negative. You're trying to use your forceful, authoritarian voice when you speak to try to convey power and control. Dog goes way down the street. Then all of a sudden, dog comes around and he's running back. Get back over here. Your body language hasn't changed. You're still in the moment. You're very upset. You're not happy he's coming back. You're still hanging on to the fury and anger for the dog running away. If that dog comes back to you and you snatch it up by the neck and you start spanking on it, or you rough handle it back in the house, that dog did not get disciplined for running away. That dog got disciplined for running back, for the recall. Now, when you go to the dog park or you're out in public and you see somebody calling their dog and the dog comes back within just out of arm's length, 5 or 6 feet, and it's wagging its tail, but its elbows are bent, and it's, oh, I want to do the right thing, but I don't want to come close enough for you to grab me, that is a telltale sign that that dog has probably been disciplined or rough handled when they came back to the owner. And in the dog's mind, it's not like a little kid who took off down the street on his bicycle and then it comes back and you were yelling the whole time, Timmy, come back, Timmy, come back. When Timmy comes back, you can tell a human, yes, I'm going to spank you now, but I spanked you because the whole time I was yelling, Timmy, come back, and you did not comply. That's why you're getting the spanking. It's not because you came back. It's because before that you refused to come back, and then when you did, you're in a lot of trouble. Dogs don't have that. We can't go back and debrief them. This is why I'm giving you the physical correction. I got the physical correction when they said come back, and then when I did, I got in trouble. We can't do that. When the dog recalls, no matter how bad it was, you've got to let that shiznit go. That's got to be in the past. As hard as it is, and it was tough for me to learn over the years. Trust me, I have made every mistake. I haven't learned this because I was enlightened from the first year as a handler. It's because I've made every mistake and I've had to learn the giant regression that it creates in the training, in the bond, in the rapport, the baggage it puts into our relationship in order to learn how to let that go, to not have it happen. So no matter what happened in the 30 seconds or 2 minutes prior to that, if that dog recalls, you can't go hammering on that dog when it comes back. So in this instance, I'm briefing a pet owner and I've taught their dog the e-collar and an e-collar recall. What do I mean by you can't put pressure on a dog from both sides? I go back to my Instagram poster from Texas. Pow, 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 pow. Foos, 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 foos. Here, ooh, 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 ooh. Hitting that e-collar, you are putting pressure on that dog from two sides. You can put a tremendous amount of pressure on a dog with a remote training collar, be it vibration or be it electronic stimulation. You can do a lot in that model of interrupt and redirect. You can put a ton of mental disruption on that dog. You can't be doing it with your voice and your body language at the same time. I'm going to incrementally turn up pressure on my collar until I see a level of compliance. And the whole time I'm doing it, I'm trying to get the dog to come to the light. If you want to do avoidance training, if you want them to turn off the stimulation to a beneficial outcome for you and the dog, you have to be the free space. Daddy loves you, out in recall, come over here. And you don't have to be super gooey, oofy foofy, even though I do it with my pets. Come to me, so happy. Happy time, everything over here is happy. I'm getting dogs to react to me in the boxes right now because of the way I'm talking, because all of them have heard it. I want to entice them to come back to me as I put pressure on their neck with the training collar. Now the good obvious out is option A, come to me. Don't fight B on your neck, come to A, because right now A has the historical performance of having that high value item. Once you come back, I've got the yum yum, I've got the Kong toy, I've got something to give you. I'm going to give you praise and nice touches. Louie, stop. I'm going to give you all of that physical touching and interaction that you long for when you come back to me, and the stimulation is going to go away all in one fell swoop. So the pressure comes up and I'm still that free space. If I need to reduce my profile, take a knee, I'm certainly not going to put my hands on my hips or lean forward or have forward postured shoulders. I'm not going to do anything that looks intimidating or mean or command presence. Hey, come to me. I've got my little lighted cone flashlights. I'm the guy out there on the flight line. Bring it this way. Bring it this way. Come on in. Your spot's right over here. So I'm going to signal that dog to come to me. As soon as he comes to me, whether it's a pet or a working dog, depending on the level that I'm using, I'm going to teach the bump steer, which is tap, tap on your continuous vibration. Tap, 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 come, tap, tap, here, tap, tap, foos, whatever, tap, tap, increasing level, increasing level. As soon as I see the compliance, I'm going to throw my verbal marker, yes, and keep reiterating my recall, whether it's come, here, foos, but I'm going to start talking him in. At any point that he starts to deviate from a direct line back to me, I'm back on the stimulation. Tap, tap, C-O-M-E, C-O-M-E, yes, C-O-M-E, come to me. And as long as he comes back online, I'm going to lay off the stimulation. I'm always directing them towards that free space. If he turns around and starts to pursue or re-engage, that level's coming up. Very nice. I'm still the happy guy that you want to come to, but the pressure is back on and increasing as you go back towards that other item of value that you want to return to. And as soon as I get them to circle back and start coming to me, they're going to take it. I've done this with really high drive pets for deer on the run. I've got deer by the scads around here, turkey, squirrel, rabbits. These are all high value items that some of these dogs pursue with quite a bit of intensity. And I will be the happy guy, and I'm going to keep tapping, and I'm going to crank on that thing till I see them do the water in the ear and start doing that U-turn. Yes, that's it, buddy. Come this way. So we're going to approach that the exact same way. And I will never understand why people are on the internet screaming at their dogs, even though they're working dogs and they're high drive. They scream at them. They sound terrible. They have horrible body language, and they are simultaneously putting a ton of pressure on them through the e-collar. In their perspective, there's not a good option. Why should I listen and come to you when you sound like a complete raging a-hole, and I might as well just take the punishment and stay here and keep going for my high value item? So that gives you kind of an idea of the trajectory that we're on with the recall. As we begin to work this, now we are going to start incorporating more and more high value offerings in less canned, more casual or real world operational settings, not the OB yard with a guy in full suit standing right there out in front of you. We want this to have some real world appearance to it. I did an Instagram post one time when I was doing a lot of information on gunfire and gunfire neutralization. I did a post. I had two dogs going out with me, and I had my 5.56, my Piston M4 with my thermal sight on there and a suppressor, and I was going out on my property and glassing for predators and other nuisance animals. The possibility that I was going to be shooting with live rounds was pretty low, but I was going to be continuously making presentations and glassing with the thermal, looking for these predator animals and nuisance animals. So the dogs were going to see a ton of presentations, but not necessarily with me shooting, because I want them comfortable and not reactive right off the rip with the presentation, because they think every single presentation is going to result in actual gunfire, which is the source of the stress in that whole exercise. So the Instagram post was specifically go out in a venue in a way where you're going to do way more presentations than shots fired, and your dog is going to have a much higher comfort level and a lot better obedience when you're making those presentations and you're moving around, recalling them or sending them back. as you make the presentations, because you're going to pull your gun out. And even real world, you're probably going to pull your gun out and give somebody lawful commands more often than you actually pull the trigger on live ammunition. So your dog doesn't need to lose its mind as soon as you present a firearm. So that's what we're working to try to get away from. In similar terms, I want to put in more recalls under moderate stimulation than I do immediately trying to go straight out on the O course or into a fenced in area and put a decoy in play and then just start hammering and screaming at this dog to foos when they're trying to go to the decoy. So how am I going to do that? Same way I was illustrating with the gunfire. I'm going to start walking out into natural settings, be them urban or be them rural. Once I've got my dog reliable off leash on an e-collar, I'm just going to start letting him go out, and I'm going to watch for signs of the OODA loop: interest, observing, orienting, deciding, and acting. And as I see him orient and observe items that I don't necessarily want him to react with, I'm going to tap, tap, recall, tap, tap, whatever the dog's name is, tap, tap, Foofy, come. And I'm going to do that recall. And once he comes in, I'm going to pay him with a toy or a little bit of liver treat that I'm carrying with me. I'm going to give him a little bit of yum yum, and I'm going to keep that incentive structure going in a real world continual repeating basis. I've already laid it out and alluded to it once. Why did you tell me about OODA loop and DEFCON 1 through 4? Because those things go hand in hand. Observe, DEFCON 1. That's the lowest rung of the ladder. It's going to be the easiest to make that recall. DEFCON 2 is going to be your orient. DEFCON 3 is your decide, and ACT is 4. 4 is DEFCON 4 with ACT, because now this dog has already observed, oriented, and decided, and he is either on the scent of someone in real world terms, or he's locked onto that decoy, or we're talking about a tactical setting with other team members, security, and or assaulters in play, and your dog has observed, oriented, and is deciding and or acting on going and biting an assaulter, a team member, or some other kind of security personnel working with you. And this we absolutely cannot have. So the reason that I made the correlation of the OODA loop cross-reference with DEFCON 1 through 4, by the time DEFCON 1 is not going to take as much convincing to get your dog to recall as DEFCON 4. Plain as day. That's your correlation. If you go out there and you've got a guy in a full suit and he's doing kitty flips and all kinds of acrobatics in a suit and boo, come get me dog, get your dog out of here, all of this agitation, your dog has observed, oriented, decided, and he certainly wants to act, and we are mentally at a DEFCON 4. This is going to be our toughest call off. If you have hit a building, you've used breaching, or you have mechanical breach and thrown a flashbang or other diversion device, and now we've got a full flowing CQB style assault and that dog is loose in there. If you see your dog at DEFCON 1, 2, 3, he's observing, orienting, and deciding, and you need to recall that dog, you need to do it before he acts and he bites that other assaulter, that team member, that security, because we can't allow that to happen. So that's why I wanted to lay out the OODA loop, what that physically looks like with your dog when they recognize something that they want to take, and put that in your mind at a way that you can digest DEFCON 1, 2, 3, 4. The longer you wait, the tougher getting that recall at number 3 and number 4 are going to be, or that moment between decide and act, that DEFCON 3.5, if you will. They're getting ready to go right over that tipping point where they go into action and they really commit to this thing. And that's going to be your toughest recall. So we're going to groom and develop that when we take that high drive dog out. If you've got a police or military working dog, even a good quality pet, unless you have trained your dog to be a game recovery animal, somebody shoots a deer and it runs, they winged it and they didn't get it as good as they thought. Unless your dog has been trained for some kind of game recovery, you don't need your dog chasing a deer or a turkey or a squirrel. If you're in a tactical setting looking for humans, whether you're tracking, doing a grid search, some kind of open area wind-based search, your dog does not need to show any sensitivity to wild or domesticated animals whatsoever. That's going to cause you to have a letdown in your tactics while you try to deal with this when you're looking for what I assume is going to be an armed and dangerous felon that needs to be apprehended in short order. So the way we develop that DEFCON 2, 3, 4 part of our ladder, going on these walks in urban and rural environments where there are other items of interest in play, where you can just get these good repetitions of recalling your dog and start building that muscle memory and that compliance to the system. I'll go and walk a working dog right into an area where I know that deer frequent, where they bed down. If you are a handler, go to the parks and to the urban areas within your jurisdiction where you know deer hang out. Deer go to the safe places. They go to the large lot communities where there's lots of grass and gardens and flower beds to pick at. Go to the city park, the county park with the football fields, the fairgrounds where there's lots of green open grazing and hunting isn't allowed. Somehow deer always know where they have a safe, unmolested area, and that's where they congregate or bed down. Take your dog there and go off leash and present them with training opportunities. Don't try to sick them on a deer or send them on a deer, but if they show interest or go into that OODA loop, start working your call off during that OODA loop, where you bring them back under control off leash with your remote training collar, and you're building that compliance. Now we're going to start moving into working it tactically with our team members. Let's put some team members in play, and let's start putting some decoys out there for the dog. Don't put them out exactly where he can see. Don't make it a slam dunk. Don't present a target that's beating on a drum or pots and pans, really trying to get the dog to break. Put them under some kind of cover and concealment where the wind is bringing the dog that scent, where you see the OODA loop begin. Put that dog on that decoy on the upwind flank to the dog in a hedgerow, in a wood line, and start walking that dog in a noses 10-8 style presentation where they, huh? What's over there? And as that dog starts in that observe, orient, and decide phase, DEFCON 1, 2, and 3, start tap, 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 stimulating your dog and calling them back with an incentive structure and paying that dog for a recall when you know good and well, my dog is a bite dog and he is competent on a decoy in a suit, or maybe he's already had real world engagements, but I'm going to start feeding him information so he can begin that OODA loop. I'm not showing him the decoy, but I am going to show it to him through scent on that upwind flank. And once he goes into that observe, orient, decide phase, I'm going to start bringing him out of it off leash. Tap, 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 tap. I'm going to call him back. I'm going to get him. As frequently as you call him back, you need to just break contact, because the point of this exercise is not to have, please, for the love of God, it's in other videos, there's no such thing as a reward bite, there's no such thing as a reward bite, there's no such thing as a reward bite. If you are one of those people and you've had bad training advice that, oh, you can't call your dog off of a target and not allow him to go back and get it because now he will lose his drive to go over there and bite the next time you go out, that's the dumbest, most worn out piece of bad advice that is still in circulation. Yes, he will. You're not going to kill his drive. Just go ahead. The point of the exercise is the recall. If you get a successful recall, turn around off leash and walk in an obedient heel back out of the venue, and then pick it up and move everything and everybody to another venue somewhere else. And instead of a wood line, put him in an old seized car from the impound lot or a decommissioned cruiser. Park it among other similar options, other vehicles. Don't go to a vacant field. Don't go to a mowed hay field and park one single car out there and then lay a guy in equipment down in the back seat with all four windows down on the upwind flank. You're going to get your dog orienting to every single car out there. That's the point of the Ultimate Tactical Exercise Maybe video. Don't can this thing where there's only a single option for the dog. Make it smooth, make it subtle. Go park this decommissioned cruiser or this impound vehicle in an area where there are other unoccupied vehicles in a controlled setting. Go down to the co-op or tire shop in your town or mechanic's garage where there are other vehicles parked overnight where you know people aren't going to be trafficking. Park your vehicle among other similar options, roll all the windows down, put the guy out of sight in the back seat, and let the dog win this guy. And once he gets him by nose, you can do 1, 2, 3, 4, observe, orient, decide. After you've already done 1 or 2 successful call-offs and you've picked up the venue and left and you walked away, on venue number 3, get that recall and then go ahead and send him again and let him work it out and take the bite. They don't have to have a reward bite. If you do this reward bite scenario, the dog is going to recall to you and then you're going to let him go and get the reward bite. Now they're going to get that same problem that we've had when I go back and I explained in the out and how to get it. If you want an out or you want a recall, the very next thing that happens in the sequence can't be, oh, now I'll let him go and get the reward bite. It will diminish the fidelity of your recall because the dog is going to be anticipating, okay, so what I do is I initially recall and then I immediately run around and go back and grab the guy anyway. We don't want that. Have some of your training scenarios, by the way, result in I get my change of behavior. The dog starts the OODA loop. He's in a car concealed among other cars. He's in a brush line or a tree line that's nondescript, where they're not the only tree in the park and he's standing on 2 feet behind the tree. It's got to be nondescript and subtle. Once you get that and you have the OODA loop, you get the recall. Have your security team give lawful commands and order the guy out and take him into custody in front of the dog with the dog under control with no bites. Again, go back and look at some of my prior videos. I have yet to find anybody, and when I did the video, this police dog training needs to stop after the second year that I was at the AT Canine conference in Indiana. The reattack or the push off or the officer or handler assault during cuffing procedures, I've yet to find anybody who, after getting this guy and being at the point you're putting restraints on to a bad guy, that the bad guy goes, yes, now is my window. This is when I go for it. There's a guy who's hands-on with me and maybe even one other guy as security and a dog in a downstay or a sit stay. This is my moment where I'm going to assault this guy and try my runaway. It's such tired, ridiculous, mindless training, but you do need to have the scenario where the guy gives up. I don't want to say Air Force again, but Air Force training with 7th Group, trying to help these Air Force guys when they go out and the guy never surrenders and the dog always goes in for the bite. I said, but what happens if he does surrender? You've got all of these reps and muscle memory into the guy's laying down, the dog does the head throw, you give him lawful challenges, the guy either stands up and then runs, or the guy never stands up and you let the dog go. You need to have the understanding of the dog and the control possible that if the guy does stand up and walk to you, that you can still maintain obedience with your dog and he doesn't become a liability, but he remains a tactical asset. So when you do some of these recalls, that's why you want to start working in controlled circumstances, that confidence where you can get your recall at DEFCON 3 and DEFCON 4 when you need it and have it reliable and have that dog come back to you even when the circumstances aren't ideal, because that's when you need it most. And you have to show the dog the picture of sometimes the bad guy will give up and you don't get a bite and you will maintain obedience and you are going to recall, and you aren't going to get that second bite at the apple where I send you for the reward bite. Every time I say it, I just want to vomit in my mouth when I say reward bite, but it's out there, and stay away from it. So this is how I want you to approach and think about the recall. That is how you begin to develop an actual recall. Then you can start increasing all of your stimulation, harder, more energetic toy throws, more toy throws in place, throwing the toy and having it in motion. The prey is not dead yet. The dog is still stimulated through its eyes by seeing the Kong bouncing through the grass, and then you send the dog, and then you call for that recall, tap, tap, come, tap, tap, place, and you turn him around and bring him back and get him back on place while that toy is still in motion. This is how you develop a quality, reliable, tactically viable recall that's going to serve you well. So I hope that makes sense. If you have any follow-on questions, if you want to hear more, probably the best way is to direct message me on Instagram. I look at that the most. I try to check the comments on the videos. Go to the website, p2tk9.com. You can send me an email from the website, so you can get a hold of me and I will address it. But that is actually how you understand a recall, how you develop it, and how you have a real one without shooting yourself in the foot long term, and all of the information you need to know the nuance of where your dog sees it from his perspective, how to get it and maintain it. Thank you for watching. I'm sure this has been over an hour. See you on the next one.